What's going on YouTube? I am Darian, the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. On this channel, I should say, I talk about fragrances as well as fashion. So if you subscribe to the channel, you're gonna hear more about a lot of exciting fragrances on the market, top 10 list, fragrance reviews, but I also give some style tips as well. So if that sounds interesting to you, I always invite you to click the subscribe button. And while you're at it, if you don't mind, take another quick moment to also hit the bell icon. That way you get notified every time I release new content on the channel and you don't miss out when I upload new content. So on today's video, guys, we're gonna be talking about 10 fragrances that I will never stop recommending. I'm gonna actually do this in a two-part, maybe three-part, but at least a two-part series. I have 10 fragrances that I'm gonna mention today. 5 niche, 5 designers, because I do understand that, you know, we have different types of collectors out there. Some people don't like niche, some people don't like designers, but hey, I figured I'd give some recommendations for both fragrance enthusiasts. Whether you are into niche or designer, there will be something on this list that I think you would find interesting. So I split it again, 5 niche, 5 designer. My second part 2 of this will be the same, 5 niche, 5 more designer fragrances. This was a tag video that was going around some time ago. I don't know if I was tagged or not, but it doesn't matter. I thought it was an interesting topic that I wanted to cover myself, so that's what I'm going to do. And from what I understand, these are just fragrances that, for one reason or another, are fragrances that we personally think are worth recommending to others. So some of our personal favorites that we think pretty much, you know, work for not only us but other people that we recommended them to in the past. So anyway, you guys understand what I'm trying to say. So we're going to talk about that today. So if you want to hear what 10 fragrances I'm going to mention today, you know the routine. Keep it locked right here. All right, guys, we're back. Thank you so much for keeping it locked in. Let's go ahead and jump right into the list of fragrances. The first one that I want to mention today comes from the house of Hermes. I've talked about it a lot on the channel for good reason. And this one is Terre de Hermes. Terre de Hermes from Hermes. Now, this fragrance is one that I will always recommend because it just gives so much versatility. This is a very versatile fragrance. It has nice citrus accords in the opening, orange, grapefruit, but the dry down, you know, really gives this masculine kind of earthy vibe that you get with this. It has vetiver in this, patchouli, gunflint. So it's really, as I've talked about it before, categorized this fragrance as before, it's really like a dirty citrus fragrance. And that's, to me, kind of a you know, a contrast, of course. You know, you get the bright citruses and then that kind of earthy darkness on the dry down. But man, this is one heck of a fragrance. You can wear this year round. It gets compliments, and I feel confident recommending this fragrance to most people. When you come into your initial stages of getting into fragrances, a lot of people love citrus fragrance, clean, fresh fragrances, and this kind of gives you that, you know, fresh citrus fragrance that a lot of people tend to gravitate towards, but then it gives you that twist as the fragrance kind of dries down. So definitely one that I would highly recommend to others from the house of Hermes. This is Terre de Hermes. The next fragrance on the list today comes from the house of Xerjoff, and this is Naxos. Xerjoff Naxos. This is just an amazing fragrance, and you know, it's one that I think is pretty, honestly, is pretty safe for most people. This has honey, cinnamon, vanilla, tonka bean, and a lot of people compare this to pure Havane. And to me, there's a slight similarity there, but this one does something totally different. This is a lot smoother fragrance. This is really, really, really smooth, and there's a slight fougere quality that's given to this one, a calming quality that's given to this one by lavender. And so it's, to me, they're totally different. You can, you know, in my humble opinion, have both these fragrances and then not be redundant to have both in your collection, this as well as Pure Havane, which is another amazing fragrance, but one that I will never stop recommending. It is so good. Puts me in a good mood when I wear this. Honestly, I get compliments when I wear this, you know, if that means anything to anybody else, but just a darn good fragrance from the house of Xerjoff. This is Naxos. Next fragrance on the list comes from the house of Mugler, and this one is Pure Havane. I just mentioned this fragrance when I talked about Xerjoff Naxos, and this fragrance is one that's very nostalgic for me. When I came into or started doing reviews on YouTube, this was one of the first fragrances that I reviewed early on, and it really reminds me of that era of time in the fragrance reviewing genre of YouTube. It was just things were a lot different back then. You know, again, I liked the way that things were back then versus how they are now, but that's a whole nother story for a totally different day. But man, this stuff is just so good to me. Again, very slight similarity to Naxos, and that's another whole thing, another topic that I want to talk about on another day. Guys, you have to understand that there are only so many notes that can be used in perfumery. There are regulations with certain things that you cannot use, things you can use, and certain accords that just, you know, don't really work together. And oftentimes when there's like maybe 2 or 3 notes in a fragrance and it may bear a slight similarity to another fragrance, we quickly call it a clone. But you know, again, like I said, that's a totally different topic for another day. But anyway, this is one that I will always recommend. I love this stuff. A pleasure and a treasure to have this in my collection. I will never stop recommending this fragrance because it's just that doggone good. From the house of Mugler, this one is Pure Havane. All right, guys, the next fragrance on the list of fragrances that I will never stop recommending comes from the house of Amouage, and this is Reflection Man. Reflection Man, this is just an absolutely beautiful scent from Amouage. My favorite, one of my favorites from the house. It is just such a unique fragrance. It's kind of spicy in the opening. You got some rosemary in there. You got some pink pepper. So you get this slightly peppery, almost rosy nuance in the opening of this fragrance. And then it becomes about the floral. There's neroli in this, I think, petit grain. Might be some jasmine in here as well. And of course, there's a beautiful, creamy sandalwood, dry down, some cedarwood as well. A little bit of patchouli in there, just to kind of give it that a little bit of a masculine punch. Beautiful scent, beautiful scent. For someone just getting into the niche world of fragrances, this is one I would highly recommend because for a niche fragrance, to me, it's kind of easy to wear, but it's a beautiful scent. A great introductory into the niche world of fragrances. I'll never stop recommending this one from the house of Amouage. This is Reflection Man. All right, the next fragrance on this list comes from the house of Tom Ford, and this one is Noir Extreme. Noir Extreme, just one of my absolute favorite fragrances, period, in the world. I did a top 10 fragrances for life, period, and this would have been the 11th fragrance if I could have had 11. This is just good, man. I mean, you know, for me, when you start talking about a gourmand fragrance, this is just one that I absolutely adore. It's very unique as well with the coffee in here. Coffee is an Indian dessert, and the variety that's used in this is kind of a pistachio nature. So it gives us this kind of nutty vibe that you get from this. But this is just a gorgeous scent, man. It opens up with some spices, a little bit more warmer, sweet spices like nutmeg. You have cardamom in this one as well, and then it dries down with all the creamy, sweet goodness, vanilla. There's a little bit hint of rose in this, some sandalwood. Beautiful fragrance. One of my favorites, and I'll never stop recommending this one from the house of Tom Ford. This is Noir Extreme. All right, and the next fragrance that I want to talk about of 10 fragrances that I'll never stop recommending, this one comes from one of my personal favorite niche houses, Bond Number 9, and this one is called Bleeker Street. Bleeker Street. This is a beautiful bottle. I always talk about that. I absolutely love this bottle. The bottle itself just brings a smile to my face. I love it. But man, then when you talk about this particular fragrance, it's just one of those fragrances I think you have to experience. There's a contrast going on throughout the duration of this fragrance between kind of this green nature and then more gourmand elements. And again, it kind of plays itself out throughout the whole entire wearing of this fragrance. So you have things in this like, I think there's some jasmine in here, there's patchouli, there's cinnamon, there's vanilla, there's caramel, there's violet leaves in the opening. So again, throughout the course of this fragrance, you have that contrast constantly going between green and gourmand. And it just created something beautiful. It's organized confusion, honestly. If you look at the bottle, it kind of represents what's on the inside of this. There's a lot going on the outside of this bottle. There's a lot going on the inside. But when you put it together, it comes out to be something beautiful, just like this bottle. And so that's why it's one I will never stop recommending from the house of Bond Number 9, one of my favorites, Bleeker Street. Now, I know some of the niche fragrances for some of the folks that, that just watch fragrance reviews, because I get comments about this a lot of times. I know everybody can't afford, or don't feel like they want to invest into some of the niche brands. So again, that's why I always recommend sampling fragrances. I always recommend places like Scent Split and places like that. If you want to get, especially the higher end niche stuff that may cost more money, sample the stuff first, guys. You can get samples at places like Scent Split. They're not sponsoring this video, but I do use Scent Split personally for fragrances that are more expensive. So again, I always link Scent Split to videos in case folks want to check out anything and sample it first before you try any of these niche brand fragrances especially. All right guys, the next fragrance on the list of 10 fragrances I will never stop recommending comes from the house of Burberry. This is Burberry Touch. Burberry Touch. I just think that it's really a crime. It should be a crime that this fragrance is as inexpensive as it is, and it is as freaking good as it is, man. This is just something that is just easy to wear. I call this my barbershop fragrance. Not that it's a fougere, but when I go run errands, or especially when I go to the barbershop, as you guys can tell, I like to keep a tight fade on me. So when I go to the barbershop, this is just a fragrance that I always like to wear. This is something about this fragrance that pairs well with being nice, fresh, and clean, especially again when I go to the barbershop and get a nice haircut. I love to wear this fragrance. This is my 3rd or 4th bottle of this stuff. One that I always have in my collection, one that I always recommend because not only does it smell fantastic, but you can find this in your bargain bins for around that $30 to $40 price point for a 3.3 ounce, 100 ml bottle. You just can't beat it. And so I always recommend this stuff. If somebody's looking for something inexpensive that's going to smell absolutely fantastic, that's versatile, you can do anything with this, wear it anywhere, any time of the year, I recommend this right here from the house of Burberry, one of my favorites. This is Burberry Touch. The next fragrance on this list comes from the house of Creed, and this is Creed Aventus. Now there's going to be 2 parts to this series again, maybe 3, and there's no way I could leave this off. If somebody's looking for something, a higher end niche brand fragrance, this is one that I will always recommend if somebody's willing or wants to spend that kind of money for a niche fragrance. It is what it is, man. This is one of probably the most successful niche fragrance, definitely over the past 10 years, because it came out in the year of 2010. There are probably about 296 clones or vintage inspired fragrances out there on the market, and that just speaks to the brilliance of this fragrance. It's one that I always love, I always have in my collection, regardless of what other people may have to say about this, because everybody like this, no, but I do. So I'll always recommend this one from the House of Creed. Of course, this is Creed Aventus. All right, guys, the next fragrance on this list comes from the House of Christian Dior, and this is Dior Sauvage. Dior Sauvage. Now, this is the Parfum concentration, and similar to what I just said about Creed Aventus, listen, we're talking about fragrances that I like, that I would recommend. And honestly, guys, this is one of the safest recommendations out there. One thing I want you guys to understand is this. Believe it or not, the fragrance community, and we're talking about reviewers on YouTube, we're talking about people that review fragrances on Fragrantica, Base Notes, and also fragrance enthusiasts like yourself that actually subscribe to fragrance YouTube channels and actually watch fragrance related content. We're a very, very small community comparatively speaking to, you know, the worldwide population. So the average person, although we may in the fragrance community hear about this fragrance all the time, the average person still may not even know what Dior Sauvage is. Case in point, I had a young lady ask me last month for Valentine's Day. She asked me in January what to get her boyfriend as far as fragrances are concerned. Very safe recommendations for me always. Once I ask a few fact-finding questions, a very safe recommendation to me always is this, or Bleu de Chanel, which I'm spilling the beans, that may be in the next video. But it's just very safe recommendations. They're accessible. They're in most department stores, your Macy's, Dillard's, Belk, etc. And guess what? I know that most people are going to like this fragrance. So when she asked for a recommendation, I told her about Dior Sauvage. Guess what? She had never heard of the fragrance before. She had to come back and ask me a second time what for the name of the fragrance. Her boyfriend had never heard of the fragrance before. So contrary to what we believe about how hyped or how much these fragrances are talked about, or they're talked about too much, it does not, you know, it's not that way for the average person. So anyway, so she hit me back and said that he loved the fragrance, right? And that she loved the fragrance on him. So there you go. That is proof that, again, that this fragrance community, that people that actually are not into fragrances don't really know about this fragrance, so it's not as popular as we may think. But again, it's a great fragrance. It's highly complimented, and it's one that I will always recommend from the House of Christian Dior. This is Dior Sauvage. All right, guys, and the last fragrance on this list, this comes from the House of Amazing Francis Kurkdjian, and this is Oud Satin Mood. Oud Satin Mood. I said in one of the last videos that I did, and I mentioned this fragrance, that I said this fragrance was too good, and I really mean that. This is just some phenomenal stuff right here. This is top-notch quality right here. Now, I like the Oud Rose combination, and honestly, for the average person, I think Oud Satin Mood is even a little bit more wearable than Portrait of a Lady, as well as Bond Number 9 New York Oud. I think this one is even a little bit more wearable than both those fragrances. But again, Oud and Rose is basically what you get in this fragrance. And it's a masterfully done fragrance. Amazing Francis Kurkdjian does some amazing scents, to say the least. And this is one of his absolute best. So it's one that I love, and one that I will never stop recommending from the House of MFK. This one is Oud Satin Mood. All right, guys, that's it. That's my time. I hope you enjoyed this list of fragrances today of 10 fragrances that I will never stop recommending. As always, I appreciate you guys' time and attention to these videos, because of course I know you could have been doing anything else, anywhere else in the world, man, but you took a few moments from wherever you are to watch this video, and I sincerely appreciate that. Don't forget to take a few moments, if you don't mind, to like, comment, and subscribe, and share these videos out to folks that you think could use this information or find me entertaining, because I'm your guy, Darian, the Bowtie Fragrance Guy. I love to look good, and of course, I love to smell amazing. So until next time, guys, keep looking good, keep smelling even better. I'll catch you on the flip side. Peace.